My sister tried to ruin my baby shower with a fake paternity test. Then her husband divorced her. Imagine the person trying to ruin your life isn't a stranger. It's your own sister. At my baby shower, she announced a fake paternity test in front of everyone, claiming my husband wasn't the father of my child. What happened next shocked us all. In today's story, we explore the depths of sibling rivalry, a family torn apart by jealousy, and how one sister's twisted attempt to sabotage a baby shower led to her own public downfall. This is a tale of betrayal, humiliation, and a shocking divorce, all during what was supposed to be a happy celebration. Growing up, my sister Minnie and I were as different as night and day. She was the outgoing, extroverted one, always the life of the party. I, on the other hand, was quiet and reserved, more focused on my studies and keeping to myself. But even from a young age, I could sense something was off between us. Minnie had this competitive streak that never seemed to end. She thrived on attention, and if I got any praise or acknowledgement from our parents, she would go out of her way to undermine it. It wasn't just sibling rivalry, it was deeper than that. I remember one time in middle school when I won a science fair. I was so proud of myself, and for a brief moment, it felt like I had finally done something to make our parents proud. But that moment was short-lived. Minnie convinced my classmates that I had cheated, and by the end of the day, the joy of my victory had been overshadowed by rumors and whispers. It was like that for as long as I could remember. No matter what I did, Minnie found a way to tear it down. She had this way of making everything about her, even if it meant hurting the people closest to her. As we got older, her manipulations became more subtle, but they were always there. If I brought a boyfriend home, she'd flirt with him, subtly planting doubts in his mind about me. She would make offhanded comments like, "Oh, you're dating my sister? Just wait until you see her temper." Or, "She's great now, but trust me, she can be high maintenance." Most of the time, it was said with a laugh, like she was just joking, but it planted seeds of doubt in my relationships. And when those relationships eventually fell apart, Minnie was always there, pretending to comfort me while secretly gloating. But the worst part was that she always managed to come out looking like the caring sister. To the outside world, Minnie was charming, sweet, and supportive. Only those closest to her, like me, knew the truth. When I met James, everything changed. For the first time, I was in a relationship with someone who saw through Minnie's charm. From the moment he met her, he was polite but distant, never falling for her manipulations like my past boyfriends had. And that's when Minnie's jealousy reached a whole new level. James and I met through mutual friends. He was kind, genuine, and most importantly, he respected me in a way I had never experienced before. We clicked instantly, and our relationship quickly grew serious. My parents adored him, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I had found someone who saw me for who I truly was. But Minnie wasn't happy about it. She could sense that James wasn't easily swayed by her usual tactics, and it drove her mad. The more serious James and I became, the more Minnie's jealousy grew. She avoided meeting him at first, claiming she was too busy or not feeling well. But when she did meet him, her intentions were clear. She wanted to destroy what we had. In the months leading up to our wedding, Minnie's behavior became increasingly erratic. She started showing up at family gatherings unannounced, inserting herself into our conversations, and making passive-aggressive comments about marriage. She would say things like, "Marriage changes people, you know. You'll see the real James soon enough." Or, "Are you sure you're ready for this? It's a lot harder than it looks." It was like she was trying to plant seeds of doubt in my mind, hoping that I would second-guess my relationship. But James was my rock. He saw right through her, and together we brushed off her negativity. The closer we got to the wedding, the more desperate Minnie became. At one point, she even tried to convince our parents that James was controlling and that I wasn't truly happy. Thankfully, my parents didn't believe her, but the fact that she would go to such lengths to sabotage my happiness was heartbreaking. After our wedding, life seemed to settle into a comfortable rhythm. James and I were happy, and we began planning for our future. When I found out I was pregnant, I was overjoyed. My parents were thrilled to become grandparents, and we started planning a small, intimate baby shower to celebrate. I was hesitant to invite Minnie, but my mother insisted. "She's your sister," she said. "No matter what, family is family. She should be there." I reluctantly agreed, hoping that maybe, just maybe, Minnie would put aside her jealousy for one day. But deep down, I knew better. On the day of the baby shower, everything seemed perfect at first. The decorations were beautiful, the food was delicious, and I was surrounded by friends and family who loved and supported me. Even Minnie seemed to be on her best behavior. She showed up with a smile, hugging me, and acting like the doting sister she pretended to be. For a brief moment, I allowed myself to believe that maybe things had changed. Maybe Minnie had grown up, and she was ready to put the past behind us. But as the day went on, I noticed little things that made my stomach churn. Minnie was doing her usual routine, making subtle jabs about James, questioning whether we were really ready for a baby, and hinting that parenthood would change everything. I tried to ignore it, focusing on the joy of the day, but her presence felt like a dark cloud looming over the celebration. Then, as we were cutting the cake to reveal the gender of our baby, Minnie struck. With a dramatic flourish, she stood up and announced that she had something important to share. "I hate to do this, but I have to be honest," she said, pulling out a folded piece of paper from her purse. "A few days ago, my sister took a paternity test, and I think everyone here deserves to know the truth. James isn't the father of her baby." The room went dead silent. My heart stopped as I looked around at the shocked faces of my friends and family. James stood frozen, his eyes wide with disbelief. My mother grabbed the paper from Minnie's hand, quickly reading through it. It didn't take long for her to realize what was happening. "This isn't even real," she shouted. "This is a fake paternity test." Minnie smirked, shrugging her shoulders. "It's just a joke," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "I thought it would be funny to see everyone's reaction." But it wasn't funny. It was cruel. And in that moment, I realized just how far Minnie would go to ruin my happiness. As the reality of what Minnie had done sank in, the guests at the baby shower were left speechless. Some stood in stunned silence, while others whispered to each other in disbelief. I could feel the weight of Minnie's betrayal crushing me, and for the first time in my life, I was truly done with her. Before I could respond, James took my hand, standing up in front of everyone. His voice was calm but firm. "This is not a joke," he said, glaring at Minnie. "You crossed a line, and you know it." But just as James was about to continue, something even more shocking happened. Minnie's husband, Larry, stood up and handed her a thick envelope. "This is over," he said quietly but firmly. "We're over." Minnie's face went pale as she opened the envelope, realizing that Larry had just handed her divorce papers in front of everyone. Her attempt to humiliate me had backfired spectacularly, and now she was the one being humiliated. What none of us knew at the time was that Larry had been planning to leave Minnie for months. Their marriage had been strained for years, largely due to Minnie's manipulative and toxic behavior. Larry had been on the receiving end of her emotional abuse for far too long, and he had finally reached his breaking point. The baby shower was the final straw. Larry had witnessed Minnie's jealousy and spitefulness firsthand, and he knew he couldn't stay married to someone who was so willing to destroy the people around her. As Minnie tried to defend herself, claiming that the paternity test was just a joke, Larry cut her off. "I've had enough," he said, his voice shaking with anger. "You've hurt too many people for too long, and I won't be a part of it anymore." Minnie's reaction to the divorce papers was nothing short of dramatic. She screamed, threw the papers on the floor, and stormed out of the baby shower, slamming the door behind her. The guests were left in stunned silence, unsure of what to do or say. I was too shocked to move. My sister, who had tried to destroy my relationship and humiliate me, had just been publicly humiliated herself. It was a moment of poetic justice, but it didn't feel as satisfying as I had imagined. Instead, I felt a deep sense of sadness, not just for what Minnie had done to me, but for the broken person she had become. My mother burst into tears, apologizing profusely for Minnie's behavior. She had always turned a blind eye to Minnie's actions, but now there was no denying the damage she had caused. The baby shower ended abruptly after Minnie's dramatic exit. Guests awkwardly said their goodbyes, offering me and James words of support before leaving. my parents stayed behind, still trying to process everything that had happened. "I don't know what's wrong with her," my mother said, wiping away tears. "I've always known she had issues, but I never thought she'd go this far." For the first time, my father spoke up. "We can't keep making excuses for her," he said firmly. "She's hurt too many people, and it's time for her to face the consequences of her actions." It was clear that my parents were finally seeing Minnie for who she truly was, a manipulative, toxic person who had no regard for the people she hurt. In the weeks that followed the baby shower, I made the difficult decision to cut Minnie out of my life for good. I blocked her on all social media, changed my phone number, and instructed my parents not to share any information about me with her. It wasn't an easy decision. Despite everything Minnie had done, she was still my sister, and a part of me hoped that she would change. But I knew that for the sake of my own mental health and the well-being of my growing family, I had to protect myself from her toxicity. James and I focused on preparing for the arrival of our baby, and as the months went by, the pain of Minnie's betrayal slowly began to fade. We installed security measures around our home, ensuring that Minnie wouldn't have any way to intrude on our lives again. When our son, Alex, was born, it was the happiest day of my life. Holding him in my arms for the first time, I knew that everything I had gone through, the heartache, the betrayal, the loss of my relationship with Minnie, had been worth it. My parents were overjoyed to become grandparents, and James's family welcomed Alex with open arms. For the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. I had surrounded myself with people who loved and supported me, and I knew that I had made the right decision to cut Minnie out of my life. After the divorce, Minnie's life quickly spiraled out of control. She lost her job, her home, and most of her friends. Word of what she had done at my baby shower spread, and people began to distance themselves from her. She tried to reach out to me several times, leaving desperate voicemails and emails, but I never responded. It wasn't that I didn't care, I did, but I knew that I couldn't save her. Minnie had to face the consequences of her actions, and I couldn't let her drag me down with her. As the years went by, I focused on healing and moving forward. I went to therapy, worked on setting boundaries with my family, and continued building a happy life with James and Alex. Minnie remained estranged from the family, and while I often wondered what had become of her, I knew that I had made the right decision to cut her out of my life. In the end, I learned a valuable lesson. Sometimes, the people we love the most can hurt us in ways we never imagined. But we have the power to choose who we let into our lives, and it's okay to walk away from those who bring us nothing but pain. This story is a reminder that even family can betray us in ways we never expect. But it's also a testament to the strength it takes to stand up for ourselves, set boundaries, and move forward with our lives. Healing is possible, even after the deepest wounds. If this story touched you, hit the subscribe button for more emotional, real-life stories. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it today.